Good evening, everyone. It's now 6 o'clock, and all of the Select Board members are here, so we will call the June 1st, 2026 Select Board meeting to order. Up first on our agenda is residents' concerns, and this is a time for public's comment on anything that's not on the agenda. So because it's not on the agenda and we are complying with open meeting law, we will typically not respond to you, but we are listening. If anybody has any resident concern, you can come to the podium or the table there if you'd rather. Introduce yourself and your street address, please.
Hi, Deborah Symes, 109 Concord Road. Did John go away? No, hi, John. This will not be the first time you've heard me say this, but I think I speak for a lot of folks when I say that the state of the town website is a little sad. I've been mentioning this kind of on the regular since the last town manager was here. Certainly there's more on the website and more information available than there used to be, and that's a wonderful thing. But I think it's somewhat unnavigable for a fair number of people. I'm not going to go into a million details, but I do have thoughts if anyone cares to hear them. All right, just one detail. The search factor is at the top of my oh my God list. I'm not digitally illiterate. I still have most of my wits, apparently, but I am honestly regularly stymied to find content that I'm looking for. And if I have difficulty, I'm imagining there are lots of other folks who do as well. So I do recognize that conducting an overhaul of the site is a staff responsibility, but I hope that the select board and the town manager will conclude that it's really, really time to do this. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other resident concerns? And I did forget to mention that we do have a 3-minute time limit for each individual. No, this is the residents' concerns. So we are going to have a listening session, which is agenda item 3, to hear feedback, input on the select board goal setting, which will take place next week. And those are more broad goals, not so much operational, that we'll focus on for the coming year and years.
My name is Alan Marks. I'm here with my wife, Martha. We live at 3 Old Village Road. We live at 3 Old Village Road in Acton Center. I am here to discuss the state of Old Village Road in terms of road maintenance and safety. This problem has been with us for at least 10 years, and the problem is worsening. There's gravel everywhere, particularly at the top of Old Village Road. There are large divots that get patched perhaps 2 or 3 times a year, and the patches last several weeks, and there's more gravel. We have a walking neighborhood. Cyclists are up and down. People are walking dogs. People are taking long walks because it's a cul-de-sac. There are 3 streets involved in our neighborhood. So it's a busy street in terms of cars. There's only one way in and one way out, and it's a very busy street with respect to people I've mentioned before. Just getting around and being outdoors. The state of the road is simply horrible. The gravel has come up on our lawn, and several times last year I had to shovel gravel, which weighs something. We have spoken to the highway department about this, and they often come and do patching, which, as I say, is not a fix. So we would plead with you folks to come and look at the road yourself if you haven't already. We know that commissions externally come around to evaluate our roads and give what's called a PCI, which we've read about, pavement something index. My mind is blocking on the C. And that metric determines which roads get paved and which roads do not get paved. We've also heard through rumors in town that the list for road paving has been shortened because of funding issues. I would like to make a plea that road safety and road maintenance should be a very, very top priority in our town. I know we have expenditures elsewhere, but in terms of safety for pedestrians, maintenance for cars, safety for cyclists, I think it's extremely important. I cycle down Concord Road to the bike path, and I see hundreds of cyclists over the course of the cycling season whizzing down Concord Road at 25 miles an hour, and the right side of Concord Road going downhill is extremely dangerous as well. So I would like very much if we could have, if you haven't already, had an on-site visit to Old Village Road and see for yourselves what residents are complaining about. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Received emails from many people in our neighborhood today.
Yep.
When we mentioned this issue. And we have also sent
So if you are going to make a comment, I need you to come to the mic. We did definitely get a lot of emails today. We acknowledge that, yeah.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you. Is there anybody online? No? Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and, oh. Ugh. Sorry, I keep turning my mic off. I did also forget to mention that Fran, our clerk, is our timekeeper, and she's got cards that she can raise up, yellow when you have 1 minute left, red when your 3-minute time is up.
Okay, well, just quickly, when I emailed the neighborhood to say we were coming tonight to present the deplorable nature of our road, that whole cul-de-sac neighborhood in Acton Center, many people emailed you from the neighborhood. Our neighborhood is very upset about the condition of this road. People have fallen and been hurt on it. It's a danger. So I assume you got the emails. I have copies of the letter that we wrote. You got it a little bit later today. So if you would like that, I'll pass them around. But please read all the emails that our neighbors also send, because having an outside commission come to evaluate a neighborhood doesn't take into consideration the importance geographically of that neighborhood for the entire area where people do come to walk their dogs, children ride their bikes, because it's a safe cul-de-sac. But because of the nature of the street, that isn't happening anymore. So you need to move some neighborhoods up and not just go by an outside commission, which really doesn't know anything about Acton. We appreciate all the beautification and all the things that you have done in the 44 years that we have lived on Old Village Road. But I think the priority of what neighbors want, like a simple street in front of their house and in their neighborhood to walk, is being overlooked by some of the projects that may have been given priority, but residents don't appreciate as much as something in front of their front door. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, if there are any more resident concerns in the room, come on up to the podium or the table.
Hello, my name is Gary Craven. I haven't really been involved in local town affairs until now. Recently, I went to a finance committee meeting, and I think the overwhelming, most important thing that we need to address is fiscal responsibility in Acton. Our taxes are skyrocketing. The finance committee laid it out very well where the problems are. We have one of the highest tax rates in the state, and the bulk of it is payroll, growing 4.5%, 5% a year, while Social Security for senior citizens grows 2 or 3% a year. We are slowly but surely pricing out all of our citizens. It's laid out in detail in the Finance Committee meetings, the affordability of Acton residents. A quick look through ChatGPT as how would we fix this. I don't have all the answers, but I think it's important that this is a top priority for the council, is how can we get our spending under control? Technology could be one of the answers. It's happening in businesses. It could certainly happen in government too. Do things more efficiently. Perhaps payroll can shrink through attrition. Another thing that is often emphasized is asset deployment, public works, uses of assets that way, and spending programs, some of which just appear baffling. I'm going to talk in round numbers, and I'm sure there's a long list that other people can come up with, but we spend $1 million to build a sidewalk to school, and then we close the school. We spent $20 million with all the assorted ongoing costs to build new fire stations, and then we closed 2 fire stations. We put these islands in the road on 27, which it seems to me that it's quite obvious people are going to be blowing out their tires and the snowplows are going to be destroying. And that's money that maybe could be better spent and get our expenses more in line with our resident affordability. And I think contacting some of these firms that do work on this, ChatGPT will tell you OpenGov is the strongest modern platform for municipal finance. Tyler Technology. It's worth having conversations with these companies and see what we can do and where we're out of line, and pay attention to the recommendations of the Finance Committee. Because if that's not the case, Acton is going downhill in terms of its affordability. I don't think bringing more business is the answer. One of the beauties of Acton is that it's a serene little town. We've been surrounded by, Maynard has a big development, Littleton has a big development, now Concord's going to have a big development. I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is just getting the government to run more efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public coming up?
This will be quick. I'm also on Old Village Road, number 9, Julie Driscoll. And I came in also just to reiterate the issues with our road, but also to piggyback off the woman who spoke about the website. I can tell you over the past 6 months, there are days when I come home and I go for a walk and I'm fuming about our road. And I try to go to the website to find out who I even contact, and I can't even figure it out on the website of who I would go to about paving issues. And unfortunately, I don't get off work in time to ever come to the town hall before it's closed to try to figure that out either. So I took this opportunity to come today just to let you know that our road is in very bad condition. The gravel is completely across it, probably 5 houses down on Old Village Road from the start all the way down. You can easily slip on it. I believe some of it is probably caused by the snow plows that knock the curbs. In fact, the curb next to our house was completely broken off, so now when there is rain, it floods into one side of our yard because of that. So we continue to put sandbags when we know the big rains are gonna come, just to try to divert it back to the road. So I just wanted to reiterate all of those issues, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public for resident concerns? All right, we will move on to the next agenda item. There's still nobody online, correct? All right, thank you, David. Hold on one second. My computer has gone to sleep. Not because everything that you were sharing was not very interesting. So I wanted to share with folks this image, couple of images of a completed project at Woodlawn Cemetery. This is our Woodlawn Chapel, and it is an ADA compliant ramp on both sides with these planters. The work is just stunning, and I am so happy whenever I drive by and glance over at it. The stonework that they used to build those planters and the steps was sourced from a quarry to make sure that it matched the existing chapel, which was built in the 1800s. Forgive me, I don't remember the exact year. So it did take a little bit of time. There was a delay until they found just the right stone. But this was a project that I was a little concerned about because this is one of my favorite buildings, if not my favorite building in Acton. And I just wanted to give a shout out to some of our staff. Kim Clark is our former cemetery office manager. Sean O'Malley is our cemetery superintendent, and Public Works Director Corey York worked on applying for and securing a grant, a sizable grant for $250,000 to do this work. And the Cemetery Commission, which consists of Bill Clower, Joe Will, Dana Snyder Grant, and Franny Osmond was an associate member at the time, also contributed to this project, $100,000 from cemetery trust funds. And this all happened pretty quietly at Cemetery Commission meetings. Not very many people attend those. I'm the liaison to the commission, so I try and get to all of the meetings. But it's just an exemplary, it exemplifies what's so special about the town of Acton, the way that the town functions with staff and our volunteer boards and committees working together. And I think that we can all be really proud of this project. So if you haven't gone down to take a look, I encourage you to do that, either in the rain or the sun. It's a stunning project. One other announcement that I wanted to make is that the health director announced to the Board of Health last week that there is an upcoming emergency preparedness workshop with the public. It's on June 18th at Nara Park from 5 to 7, and you can go to the website, and hopefully it will be easy to find because it will be part of a news flash. You can also sign up for notifications and get those on your email or via text message. But I highly encourage everybody to attend that emergency preparedness public session. And now we'll go to the manager for a manager's update.
Good evening. I just wanted to mention, while I had a moment, about the website, is that I've been working in local government for 20 years, and I have trouble finding stuff on our website, too. I think, but what I do is Google. I use Google, and it's faster, and it's available for free, and it does a good job of figuring out where stuff is. So I recommend you do that. We try to have functions that work perfectly, and we have a lot of data that we've collected over decades. That's all in there, and sometimes when you search for a road, every time that road has ever been discussed over the last 30 years comes up in the search bar, and Google does a better job of finding than we do. So more to come on that. I just wanted to give that tip to viewers.
Thank you. And now, are there any member minutes from select board members? Dean?
Thank you. A couple of upcoming events. The long-awaited dog park is about to open officially. There'll be a brief ceremony on Friday of this week, and the entire dog park will be open to the public starting Saturday, June 6th. It's been a long process. The dog park committee has been in business for about 10 years. We received some tremendous grants from the Stanton Foundation for $250,000. Plus, we were able to get some money from CPC and from some other sources. So I think it's going to be a real asset to the town. You have to have patience, but eventually all these things like Kelley's Corner, McManus Manor, and the dog park all get done. Next, on Sunday, June 14th at 2 p.m., there is one of the last of the events for the Acton 250 Committee, which is going to be held at the Acton Congregational Church on Concord Road. And it's a short play called Declaring Independence Then and Now. And this is a co-production between the Acton 250 Committee and Freedom's Way. So everybody is invited to that. It's going to be pretty much a swan song for the Acton 250 Committee. As you know, we've put together quite a number of speaker programs and other events over the last couple of years, and this just about caps it off. Also, on Thursday, June 25th, between 7 and 8:30, at the Acton Memorial Library is a speaker, Professor Emily Sneff, who will be speaking on When the Declaration of Independence Was News. And that's another co-branded production between Acton Memorial Library and Acton 250 Committee. Thank you.
Pam?
I'd like to acknowledge that today was the graduation for Minuteman, which was actually moved up from this coming Friday to Monday because Minuteman has 14 seniors that are participating in the Skills USA National Competition in Atlanta. They brought their bags to graduation and left directly from there. But we had 18 seniors from Acton graduating, including the salutatorian. So just congratulations to all of our students.
David?
Hi, I just wanted to let everyone know that on the afternoon of Friday, June 19th, there'll be a Juneteenth commemoration here in Acton Center between the Congregational Church across the street and the back of the library next door. Oh, it'll include cultural events, song, music, other cultural presentations, a speaker. It'd be a pretty good event.
All right, lots going on in Acton. I will go ahead and announce our next agenda item, which is our goal-setting listening session. And we do have a public hearing scheduled for 6:30, which is in 8 minutes. But I had planned for about 15 or 20 minutes for goal-setting listening session. So I want to gauge how many folks are here to speak to that. 4, 6. So about 10 folks? All right, how about we do 2 minutes for each person? So Fran, if you can keep time and just hold up the yellow card after a minute and the red card after 2 minutes. And it would be great if you can sit in the front row or even stand at the podium so we can go through without too much pause between each person. And I guess if there's anybody online who would like to participate in the listening session, if you can go ahead and raise your hand now so we have an idea of how many folks are out there virtually. Whoever wants to come up first, go ahead.
Deborah Symes, Concord Road. I am one of the co-presidents of Green Acton, and as such, I'm here to recommend that the Select Board, recommend to the Select Board the following short and long-term goals. One is to complete the process of establishing an independent sewer commission. We think that's a short-term goal. Another short-term goal we'd like to recommend is to investigate the feasibility, pros and cons of a no-road salt or low-road salt application zone in Groundwater Protection Zone 1 or in Groundwater Protection Zones 1 and 2. And the third one is a long-term, I presume a long-term goal, which is to establish a robust mechanism for funding and implementing improved stormwater management systems in Acton with the objectives of decreasing flooding of roads, walkways, and buildings, decreasing the risk of transportation disruption due to bridge or culvert failure, and protecting the water quality of discharge into Acton's municipal, separate storm sewer system, and into Acton's brooks, ponds, and river. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Susan Jick. I am another co-president of Green Acton, And Green Acton is asking the Select Board to consider making a goal to bring to town meeting a more robust tree protection bylaw for privately owned lots. Short and sweet. Thank you.
I'm Kim Castens from 294 Pope Road, and I'm speaking as an individual to provide a little more information on two of the goals that Deborah just introduced. First, on the Independent Sewer Commission, this idea came forward as a non-binding citizen petition warrant article. The Select Board commissioned a study by the Collins Center, which reported in March of 2025, and the Select Board heard a presentation at their July 16th meeting last year, but I don't think there's been any further action on that. So this is just a nudge to keep that process going forward. The second of the goals that I'm speaking to is establish a robust mechanism for funding and implementing improved stormwater management systems in Acton. So I believe that you'll hear a short-term goal offered on this topic by RAC to establish a funding mechanism. And I'm here to provide some more thoughts about what to think about in the longer term after the funding system is already in place, with a particular focus on environmental aspects. So the handout has a lot of details on it, but just to emphasize the environmental aspects, so we're suggesting incorporate the Conservation Commission with their wetlands expertise as an integral part of the stormwater management process, remembering that wetlands are the first line of defense against flooding. Provide incentives and education resources to encourage the use of nature-based solutions for stormwater retention, such as rain gardens and vegetated swales. When culverts or bridges undergo upgrades or replacement, size the new openings to allow passage of aquatic and terrestrial animals. And then develop additional mechanisms to keep de-icer pollution out of the Coles Brook catchment area from the DPW area. Map the outflow locations where stormwater discharges into brooks, ponds, or rivers, so we actually know where stormwater is going, and monitor the water quality as selected outfalls. And we'd be happy to provide more information on any of these ideas.
Hi, Bruce Ricona Jr., Main Street. I'm here to speak as an individual on the Green Acton idea of having no low salt or no salt zones around the zones of contribution. And the reason that this is a problem is that over the last several decades, there's been a lot of use of road salt that is accumulated in the groundwater, and that groundwater is now reaching levels that have impacts with respect to human health through drinking water, and also actually impacting some of the aquatic life in terms of what's happening in Neshoba Brook and other places here. We have a handout there, and you'll take a look at there in terms of some of the data that we got from the Acton Water District, the sodium levels in the drinking water wells, and almost all the wells are above the 20 milligram per liter that is suggested for protection of public health for people with hypertension and other related ailments. The chloride is up almost in some of the wells, is getting close to the 250 milligram per liter level for that's set by US EPA as a secondary maximum contaminant level. That's primarily for taste. But however, when you start getting it that high, what I understand from the Acton Water District, it's now the water starts getting corrosive. And if we start putting more corrosive water into the pipes, then by the time it reaches the homes, it may have leached out copper, lead, whatever else that might be there, and people will be ingesting that. So we're starting to creep up to those type of levels there. And we're seeing, levels in Neshoba Brook, although that's not drinking water, that are above what is the recommended freshwater aquatic life numbers, and about where things start being negatively impacted by that, at least in terms of some of the local type of things from ORS and other people. So the current situation is not great, and it's not going to get better. Okay, it's my time up. Okay. So I'll keep moving along here, though. It's not great, it's not going to get better, and the problem is that we really, when it comes to sodium chloride, these are not easily treatable. So really, the only other option is to start taking responsibility and try and stop using as much road salt and de-icers in the areas that are going to be affecting our wells, which are the zones 1 and 2. And we use about, I think about 300 tons of de-icer per year. If you divide it by 113 miles in Acton, that's about 16 tons.
Brewster, I'm going to keep you to 2 minutes so we can hear from everybody who wants to
all right.
speak.
I would just encourage that there are other towns in our situation, and there are things that can be done, and there are pros and cons, and certainly they need to be weighed out to see whether or not we can do that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ron Parenti, Heritage Road, representing the RAC Committee, the Water Resources Advisory Committee. I want to remind you that in 2024, you asked the RAC to investigate the status of the stormwater infrastructure in town and also review the report by Woodward and Curran that recommended that the town spend $10 million over a period of 10 years. The RAC spent most of last year writing a report, and the conclusions, recommendations of that report were given to this committee back in December. That report emphasizes that past spending for stormwater upgrades has been inconsistent and inadequate. The committee believes that the stormwater system should be treated as a utility and have a reliable revenue stream similar to the income obtained from customer billing for drinking water and sewer services. The RAC report recommends the creation of a fee-based stormwater system similar to that, fee-based stormwater utility similar to that adopted by Concord and Chelmsford, or the creation of a revolving fund financed through the general fund. The RAC favors a fee-based system, but recognizes that the FinCom may be opposed to that option. The transition to a new funding and management mechanism like a stormwater utility is likely to take several years. The RAC would like to see this process initiated as soon as possible, and for this reason, we are urging this committee to move the stormwater infrastructure plan to your short-term goal list. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Greg Jarbo, 5 Cherokee Road. Although I am Vice Chair of the Finance Committee tonight, I'm speaking as individual citizen. In fact, a long time ago, back in 1981, I was a member of the Select Board when we had to implement Prop 2.5 for the first time. We had to do that for fiscal year 1982. And that's when we created, for the first time, the Acton Leadership Group of the Select Board, the Finance Committee, the School Committee, to try to reach a consensus, if at all possible, before town meeting, so that we could at least present the community with the best possible approach to a new and challenging situation. That situation has gotten even more challenging. This morning's Boston Globe basically said, in fact, the headline here, middle class costs outpace inflation rate. I suggest that it's sort of the context in which any new project is going to have to be evaluated. And so what I would urge you to consider is that although many people think that Acton is well off, just to use the numbers here, our median household income is $158,000, and if you compare that to Concord, it's $195,000, or to Sudbury, it's $236,000. So as much as we would like to keep up with the Joneses, it's a little challenging. We often feel squeezed. So you know the ALG model as well as I do. We're going to have some challenges going forward, and what we hope is that we can find a path to next town meeting.
Hi, Jim Carey, Guswood Road. Two quick things. and hopefully I'll give you back some time. There was discussion of the management of immigrant policies that the police department uses. I never saw that come back, so I'd like it to be a goal to get that, the changes that were suggested adopted or not adopted. Hopefully that would be a quick one. And there's been open discussion about whether we should have surveillance policies and bylaws regarding adopting policies about how the town allows surveillance to take place within its limits, both public and private. And I'd like to see that on the agenda for the next year. Thank you.
Scott Sullivan, 8 Patriots Road. I'd just like to ask the Select Board to be thoughtful and think about cost reductions for this next year before we get to a situation where we have to have draconian cost reductions. And that storm is coming, and I'd like to have logic and thought put into that process. Thank you.
Evening, everyone. Alex Lenz, Old Village Road. It does need a little bit of love, but that's not why I'm up here. Also on the FinCom, but mainly speaking for myself tonight, to add on to what Scott and Greg said, the town's facing a lot of financial challenges, and there's a lot of opportunities for cost efficiencies. I don't like using the term cost reductions, but there's a lot of opportunities for us to take a look at how we're spending, where we're spending, and what we're spending on. And I feel that it's very important to continue to build a sustainable future, that we look at it not in a reactive way on the short term, but in a much more proactive manner in the mid and long term. That's it. Thanks.
Are there any other folks in the room who want to participate in the goal setting? I thought I saw some hands over here. Anybody online? No. Okay. Thank you all very much. Just for your information, our goal setting workshop is taking place in the library second floor conference room next Monday at 4 o'clock, 4 to 7. Public is welcome to attend or watch online, but there is no public participation because it is a working retreat for the board. You can still, if you're listening, or if you didn't get up to speak tonight, you can still email your ideas about select board goals to sb@actonma.gov. Just keeping in mind that the goals are intended, my computer went to sleep again, intended to be strategic direction for the town manager to guide departments in the town, increase transparency and accountability, and definitely inform our budgeting priorities. So any ideas that you want to share with us, we welcome email input. Thank you. All right, we need to now go on to item number 4, which is a public hearing. And I will read the hearing notice. The Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing continued from May 18, 2026 on June 1st, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room, 204 at the Town Hall, 472 Main Street, Acton, and virtually at actonma.gov/meeting/SB on Primrose Schools Franchising Company for a site plan special permit under zoning bylaw section 10.4 at 457 Mass Ave. The applicant proposes to construct a 2-story, 14,134 square foot childcare facility. Application materials and how to participate remotely are available online and at Acton Town Hall, doc.actonma.gov/dsweb/view/collection-19896. The applicants are here, and I just want to start out with a little bit of updates from our last hearing and also address that public hearing notice that says site plan special permit. Last time we met, a couple weeks ago, I asked for staff to get some feedback from town council about the mandatory findings that are typically in a special permit. And we were reminded that the board's authority is limited to site plan review. So even though the title of the hearing is site plan special permit, a childcare facility is a protected by right use. So we are not actually issuing a special permit, so there are no mandatory findings that need to be included in the process. Just a reminder for the board members and the public, the applicant is seeking relief from some zoning requirements. The town has a 2,500 square foot net floor area restriction, and this project is 10,050 square feet. Our zoning also requires a 0.1 floor area ratio, and this project is 0.16 floor area ratio. And the other zoning requirement that they're seeking relief from is the open space requirement. Our zoning requires 35%, and the project has 27%. There's also another parking proof plan requirement that the board indicated we are not requiring at the last hearing. So basically what this means is that the building will be larger, the building coverage will be greater, and we'll have a little bit less open space, 8% less open space. I did ask staff to share some information about other childcare facilities in town. So I was provided with a table, and I just want to point out a few of those. There were a couple that were very small, but others are similar in size. So the kinder care that's located at Post Office Square has a net floor area of 9,000 square feet and 0.09 FAR. The Great Brook School, which opened recently, also has a 9,000 net floor area, and it looks like I forgot to write down the FAR, sorry. It was similar. No, it was really, really low. Infant Toddler Center is a 12,500 square foot net floor area with a 0.14 floor area ratio, so that also exceeds our zoning requirements. And the Learn and Play on Main Street is about 3,000 square feet net floor area. So it's small, but it also exceeds the FAR at 0.13. So just to give everybody an idea on the board and in the public that there are existing childcare facilities in Acton that do not comply with those zoning requirements. I also wanted to provide a little bit of history for everyone of this project because it's actually been before the board for more than a year now. The first request last year during the summertime, or maybe even the fall, was for additional sewer units for that property because there's a single-family home that exists there right now. So the board did grant those additional sewer units with a contribution from the proponent to I&I work to increase our wastewater discharge capacity. The board did urge the saving of the historic home on the property, and at least one board member asked for the outdoor play spaces to be moved away from the street, and another board member asked for a smaller center. The applicant applied for a demolition of the property of the house, which is on our cultural resource list from the Historical Commission, and the Historical Commission imposed an 18-month delay to that demolition due to the value and the potential for preservation. And that demo delay expires in November of this year. I also wanted to bring up, Dean had mentioned the challenges in past hearings of maintaining or preserving a historic home, because I had asked the applicant to look at some other childcare centers, infant toddler center in Acton, and also the Taylor School in Boxborough, as examples, good examples of old properties that are incorporated into, by having a modern addition built on, and successful childcare centers. And Dean pointed out that the infant toddler center was seeking financial support from the town in a CPA grant, and that was just, the financial challenges of maintaining and preserving, renovating an old historic home. But I did want to point out that they did actually complete their work in January, even without the support of the town. So just the fact that this independent nonprofit childcare center has done this work successfully without financial support makes my case that it is possible for a historic building to be saved and incorporated into the childcare center. And if this, little infant toddler center can do it, I have a hard time believing that the Primrose franchise, a $2 billion company, can't manage that. But it's not something that the town can require because we're limited in our authority. I also wanted to point out that if that home were not incorporated into the project and then became commercial, you mentioned at the last hearing, all of the code updates that would be required. I know the commercial, load is different from residential. If it would to stay residential and be rented out, similar to some other owners in town, like the Acton Congregational Church has a couple of historic homes that they rent out, then you would not have to have those commercial requirements, and it would also be a source of income. The pro forma that you presented at our last hearing, specifically the Sudbury site, I was a little disappointed to hear that the representation that purchase price was actually less, because in my research, news reports show a $2.6 million purchase price of that 2.3 acre property, which is more than twice of the 1.125 million purchase price for 457 Mass Ave. Additionally, my main concerns about this project, aside from wanting the historic home preserved and incorporated into the project somehow, is the drastic alteration of the landscape in order to accept this project, and the ramifications on the traffic circulation in the area. So primarily my concerns are over traffic safety. And it's not, we've received some emails from residents about more cars and longer backups. It's really not about the volume, but the increase in the points of conflict that are going to be created between pedestrians and vehicles with other vehicles on the adjacent roadways, the junior high driveway. I note that the snow storage area on the site plan is not really adequate for a lot of snowfall, and so it may be needed to be removed off-site. And while that might be the plan, operationally, I'm a little concerned that won't necessarily happen, because there are times when we have a lot of snowfall like this last winter where there are commercial properties where the snow is not moved off-site, and precious parking spaces are actually blocked by the snow pileup. Another concern I indicated last hearing was the traffic study being done before the Charter Mass intersection was signalized. I reviewed the traffic study again, and I note that it assumes that there's a police officer presence. We don't have a police officer there. We do have crossing guards. And there's also, it assumes a great number of pass-by vehicles in terms of counting the number of cars that this project is going to produce. And I'm thinking that it could potentially be more cars that are generated So the pass-by vehicles, for folks who are not familiar, is assuming that somebody's already there dropping a child off, a student off at one of the other schools, which are next door. But we have buses for that, and so I'm thinking that if someone is using both the child care center and the school, they might actually not take their elementary student to the bus stop and instead take them where they wouldn't have otherwise. There was a presentation by Mass DOT a while ago about the proposed changes for an intersection at Piper, Taylor, and Route 2, and they had a simulation of the post-development traffic with little tic-tacs on the screen to show how they expect traffic to be moved. I don't know if you have access to something like that, but I think that if it's possible to have some sort of simulation of post-development traffic circulation, that would be really great. We did just remove a couple of access driveways at Kelley's Corner. The driveway access from Carroll Spinney Way to the Starbucks Plaza has been eliminated for safety and walkability. Also, the driveway access to the Dunkin' Donuts on Main Street removed for the same reason. And Mass DOT eliminated one of two driveways at a project that we just permitted on Great Road. So I know that Mass DOT is still going to look at the traffic report, maybe do some updates. So if there can be any simulation or if there are any changes that can come back to the board. I guess that was a lot of talking, and I do have a couple of questions for you. And then we'll hear from the other board members what their thoughts and questions are. I'm wondering, in terms of the site plan and the driveway location, what alternatives, if any, to the existing location were considered when you were developing the site plan, and what the criteria were for their safety? Because I'm just wondering about the configuration of the building, the parking, the driveway, and whether or not there's an alternative that might be safer for the interactions of vehicles coming in and out of that driveway from Mass Ave and Prospect. So we'll start with that one question.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. Just for the record, my name's Adam Drake. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design, based out of 120 Washington Street in Salem, Mass. Here representing Primrose Schools as the site civil and the traffic engineer. I don't know if you want me to cycle back to a couple of the other. Yeah, so as far as the traffic report and concerns you had, like you said, we are still working with Mass DOT. We actually got the 75% review back this morning, or it could have been over the weekend, but they did mention that they had talked with the town, and someone with the town had kind of let them know that we were interested in extending the sidewalk and providing that crosswalk there. They didn't really provide a definitive stance on it, so we'll just have to work with Mass DOT on, providing something they feel happy with. And, if there's any missing information in the reports, we're going to work with them to update it, make sure everything's, meeting the current conditions, and any updated report or plans we'll be sure to distribute back to the town. And then I can circle back to snow storage. So if by chance, we don't have enough room for snow storage, it's standard at, multiple Primrose sites in the area to have private haulers bring off any excess snow. So we'd be happy to include that in the conditions or add it to our operations and maintenance manual as well.
And then, Madam Chair, Jonathan Silverstein for the record, counsel for the applicant. I just wanted to clarify one thing. You had mentioned that the traffic report relied for its conclusions on the presence of police details. The only reference I see to police details actually is that it mentions that the conclusions do not account for the police details and states that it is important to note that the calculated level of service and delay is likely a significant overestimation of existing conditions, which are likely ameliorated by the presence of police details and crossing guards during peak school arrival period. So what it's saying is we're not accounting for that. Were we to do so, we think that the results would be even less significant than what we reported. And it does specifically mention crossing guards as well. So I just wanted to clarify that one point.
Thank you. I did check in with council about any future need that arises for a police detail, and that is definitely something that would be the applicant's responsibility. And in terms of the Mass DOT plans, just to let the board know, she did say that we can condition the decision to have the applicant come back for an amendment should the Mass DOT permit modify the plans. So we can do that, but I would also just as soon as have the hearing continued until we get that final plan, especially if there's any chance of a simulation happening, just to ease my serious concern. And this comes from direct personal experience of working at one of the schools for 4 years. Like every day I was navigating that, getting into and out of the campus there. So I know how it's not the volume of cars, it's the interaction between vehicles that are turning and the students that are crossing and how much time you have to wait. And certainly driver behavior is impacted by, feelings of impatience or frustration or being late. So I would just assume, similar to the project that I mentioned earlier on Great Road, the trade shops, they continued the hearing. But I'd love to hear from the board when we get to that. If you'd rather condition them coming back for an amendment or just continue until we have that information from Mass DOT to incorporate into the decision. And I'm expecting you want to respond to some of the things that I've said.
I do, Madam Chair. It's Matt Taylor with Primrose. I just wanted to qualify your statement about, the cost per project. It may have been a misinterpretation. The Sudbury project overall was much cheaper, much less expensive overall, meaning we bought a building that we renovated and didn't build. So maybe I didn't qualify that correctly in my last presentation, but it was a much less expensive than what we're proposing here. That was my point. Just want to qualify that.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just qualify what my statement was actually Mr. Silverstein's comment. And I went back and watched the recording to make sure I hadn't misheard. And it was the purchase price that was represented, referenced, and that it was much lower. So I just wanted to make sure that, everybody on the board and in the public was aware of that. But the overall cost, yeah, gotcha.
And for the record, I probably misinterpreted what Matt had said to me, so I apologize. I certainly wasn't intending to mislead the board in any way. I certainly apologize for that. As to continuing, I guess, as you mentioned, this has been so far about a year-long process. There's a lot of expense. There's obviously, in the interim, costs just keep going up. We don't know. I don't think we can necessarily rely on MassDOT to meet any particular timeline. And speaking for us, we'd certainly rather have a conditional approval with the understanding that if we're going to want to come back and change our plan if it's impacted by what happens with that project. And so we're happy to come back and do that. But for what it's worth, and I haven't specifically spoken to my client, but I'm pretty comfortable saying that we'd certainly rather the board conclude and give us an approval with the condition that we would have to come back.
Let me just ask you, there isn't any work that is permitted to start, to commence until November 14th, when the demo delay, like you can't even do site clearing or tree removal. So is there a benefit to having the conditioned decision come sooner because you can lock in pricing? You
Yeah,
mentioned
so-
costs going up over time.
So I think it's a few things. First of all, demo delay only applies to demolition. So I don't believe we would be precluded from doing other work. But the other thing is, we can't start preparing building level plans. We can't start securing funding. We can't do anything until we have an approval in hand. So, it is pretty significant if there's any chance of us breaking ground this year or getting started this year. That delay is.
Understood, thank you
Thank
for adding that detail. Are there any questions or concerns, comments from the board? Pam?
Hi, excuse me. I want to acknowledge that I'm a new member of the Select Board. So while this has been going on for, I think, over a year, I've tried to catch up, but I'm sure that there was a lot of conversation that I've missed out on. So I apologize if my next question is something that you've talked about in detail. I know you have said that it is not practical to incorporate the existing house into your building design, but I want to go back to something that Alyssa said at the very beginning about keeping that house as residential. And would that be a possibility, and has that been discussed to keep that as a residential property and then, do your building on the rest of the property?
So the access goes right through where the building is, and the topography and the sight lines, I mean, it just wouldn't be safe. You'd be having cars coming in and out on much steeper grades right next to a structure that's going to be blocking their sight lines. That's me as a lawyer speaking. I suspect that Adam could speak to it.
Yeah, no, you phrased that very well. A lot of our utilities are going through the existing building now. So to be able to accommodate all the impervious surfaces and utilities of both of those uses, there really just wouldn't be enough space on the property to accommodate that. Obviously, we do have the topographic challenges as well as the bedrock challenges as well, but it's really just trying to fit those two uses on one site would be very difficult.
That reminds me, can you speak to the site plan development and how the access driveway location was chosen? Is this the safest location?
Yeah, I don't know if we're able to bring up the site plan on the TV here, but we situated the access for the school between the two existing roads. So I don't know the exact dimensions off my head. I believe it's about 60 feet from each of those accesses, which is, the safest because it gets you furthest away from conflicts with both of those.
So you mean 60 feet away from the junior high, 60 feet away from Prospect?
Yeah, so I actually
Okay.
have it right here.
Right in the middle of the two, okay.
Correct, it's right between those. I believe that's a regulation in the ordinance as well. I can't remember if it's 50 or 60 feet in the ordinance, but it's a requirement to be that distance from the
Okay.
two.
And you mentioned the bedrock, and we did get an email from a member of the public in a nearby neighborhood questioning the need for blasting, and we haven't discussed that, and I didn't see anything in the application whether or not that's going to be required for this project.
So we graded the site in a way to keep the foundation and most of the driveways above bedrock elevation as well as utilities. There will likely have to be some excavation through bedrock. I believe the more common method of, removing that now is using kind of like large hydraulic hammers as opposed to your like traditional blasting. But I can't speak to the
I
construction
think that's
now.
what she meant.
Gotcha.
Other board members? David?
So just a clarification, Madam Chair, we're not discussing yet the decision, right? I have comments on the decision, but we're not discussing that yet.
Absolutely, you can discuss that.
Okay, so my first thing is I would prefer that we not continue the hearing forever. I'd rather come back with an amendment. To me, the situation on Great Road is different, but exemplary of the delay that could be. So in that one, we specifically talked with the applicant about changing from 2 driveways to 1. And we wanted to condition the site plan to have only 1 driveway, but they couldn't do that without MassDOT approval. So in that one, we had to wait for MassDOT approval. This one, we don't have such a impediment, and so and actually that one, we continued the hearing for each of 4 or 5 months, right? So it took 4 or 5 months for MassDOT to get back to the applicant. So I'd rather come back with an amendment if MassDOT requires them to change something in their plan. The question also relates to something that you've already discussed here today, and that's there's a there's a point 3.3.7 in the conditions. The applicant shall not begin any site work, including the clearing of trees, until the demo delay is lifted. I'm wondering why that is there. Is there a reason for that? I would propose to strike that condition. I don't see what that does to save the house. I mean, I'm sorry that the house is going, but the demo delay in the house doesn't apply to clearing of trees. So anyway, that's my.
Okay, well, that's the applicant's viewpoint, so maybe we can have staff speak to that, why it's included.
Sure, thank you. We just included that just on the off chance that anything could happen potentially to the house and there would be a potential buyer down the line. It was okayed by council, but we can certainly take it out.
May I follow up? Yeah. I'd be happy to have some kind of condition that says the house can't be damaged in any way before the demo delay. That makes perfect sense to me. But if they want to begin site work that doesn't damage the house, I think that's fine in my opinion. And there are probably a lot of things that they can do that are not near the house. Those are my only 2 comments.
I have some quick thoughts, not about the decision, but all we've been presented with is a superimposing corporate model being plunked down on a lot that's both inappropriate in size and topography for the building. I would like to see a pro forma for a building half the size, and for you to prove to us that it's not profitable. Acton values its cultural resources, and this red house is one of them. I'd like to see a plan that's creative, maybe breaking out of your corporate model and having the center half the size it is now, and renovating the existing house and using it as an income-producing property. And I also have concerns about the driveway location as well, and wondered if you ever considered having the driveway line up with Prospect for future need of a traffic light.
Just to address the access going through Prospect here, it's typically not best practice to have a drive aisle going into an existing intersection like that. You know, the safest option and industry standard would be to align it the way we have between the 2 existing intersections.
I'm hoping to break out of not a safety standard, but an industry standard. I mean, Acton is full of creative artists, engineers. We value our cultural resources. They sit on our boards and committees and advocate. So I would really love to see something go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I appreciate the sentiment. It is industry standard because that is the safest method, though, just to clarify.
By industry, he didn't mean Primrose, he meant transportation management.
Matt Taylor, Primrose. Ms. Arsenal, like, I appreciate where you're coming from, and I said this at the last meeting, we had the same discussion about trying to save this home. I've been in it, maybe you have, I don't know. Okay. It is an absolute unsafe place to have it right now. It is, to inhabit, I should say. It's not, it would require a lot of work to make it livable. It's really just doesn't incorporate well into what we're trying to do. The idea of cutting this project in half, I think on the onset, I can see where you think that we're being, I don't know, potentially greedy. I'm not sure what the right word is, but we run our projects and develop our projects based on a model that we know works, and half the model doesn't work. I mean, I can tell you that, it just doesn't. I tried to share some numbers with you guys to try and give you an idea. You know, an absolute pro forma number, I don't think I'm going to share that. I really can't because it's public record, and I don't want to put our franchise owners, I don't want to put my company in a jeopardy situation where every board knows every dollar that's made. It's not fair. So I am telling you that half the size doesn't work. I'm going on record with that, and that's why we're doing this. And if that is the board's desire, that's probably, it's just not going to work for us. And I'm sorry to be so hard about it, but it's the truth. And we've tried to develop a project here that I think fits in well. We've done multiple projects across the state that are very similar sized on lesser sized lots, and they fit in the community well. Really haven't had any complaints that I can hear of or think of in any of these communities. So we want to be a good neighbor, and I don't want to come out strongly that I don't hear you, because I do. I hear you, but we're pretty far down the line for that at this point. And I understand your desire, and you're a voting member, and I totally get that. So no disrespect whatsoever to you or anyone on the board, but I just want to be clear that that just isn't going to work for what we're trying to propose here. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Well, I think I share the feelings of my colleagues about the historic home. I've got a little more history in it than my colleagues. My grandmother was born in that house. You know, it was actually used as a rooming house for folks that early immigrants from Wales, actually, who worked in some of the barrel factories here in West Acton. So there's kind of a long history of it. And, you know, every time we lose a house like that, you know, that is certainly a part of our history and tradition here in town. So on an emotional level, it really upsets me to see that house go. But I recognize that this is just one more of many houses that we're losing as part of progress. So I also am sympathetic to the issue of being able to right-size a daycare center so that you can actually have enough volume of students going through there and always having classroom space available as kids graduate from one classroom to the next so that you can always accommodate them. So I think I understand the model that you've got there, and I think I'm glad that we were able to see some of the numbers from some of the other daycare centers here in Acton. So, yeah, I'm not going to predispose how I'm going to vote for it, but I certainly share my colleagues' dismay with losing that house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charter. I'm curious, though, because I may be misinformed by the HDC on timing of the build of that house.
Historical Commission.
I'm sorry.
So it's a little different than the district because it's outside
Commission.
the district.
My apologies. What date or dates are you referring to? I'm just curious, like turn of the century, 20s, 30s?
No, I believe my grandmother would have been born about around 1880. Her parents came over from Wales probably in the 1860s, 1870s. And it was an existing house then. It was not built specifically for that purpose, but it got, there were not a lot of houses here in Acton at the time, so it was used for a residence for some mill workers. And it's the whole Davis family, and the condominium development that's across the street later became Davis property, and there was a structure there that was built by them, was a family home, and that one was demolished to accommodate the residential condos directly across the street from the property. So when I say about how it's just one more historic home being destroyed, it's one more historic home being destroyed.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. I was just trying to qualify some dates. Thank you so much.
I'm glad Dean mentioned the Davis family because I was thinking this was a charter family home. But that's the Davis monument right outside here on the green. So, just speaking about being a good neighbor and coming into the community and being, great partners with the community, I think that every effort, and I know you've done a lot already, but continuing forward every effort to save that house, if it cannot be incorporated into the project, finding a place to move it to. And that is, I suspect, going to take more, if you're willing, than a listing of the property. And I know that that's part of the decision, but I think additional effort by reaching out to folks that are in the community. We have a lot of architects, we have a lot of developers, we have a lot of people who have worked on preserving historic homes. The chair of the Historical Commission has already shared an estimate of, $500 a square foot for a total of $1 million to renovate that property, because even if it's not livable right now, it's structurally sound and the bones are good, and the Historical Commission did a site walk, and the reason that they imposed the demolition delay was because it's so valuable and it's worthy of preservation. So whatever we can do beyond just having a listing of the home for sale would be fantastic, relationship building here.
Yep, no, understood. And I did the site walk with those folks too, so I heard firsthand their thoughts, so thank you.
I just want to see if there's any public comment, either here in the room or online. If you're in the room, you can just head up to the podium.
Hey, Ron Laughlin, 463 Mass Ave. I'm on a butter to the property. On the ledge work, never really occurred to me until now, if you're not blasting but you're using hydraulic hammers, are abutting properties protected against vibrations and damage? Because I have a post and beam barn that's about 30 feet from the lot line, and my house is about 250 feet, so.
I'm just going, to your point, Ron, surveys have to happen of all the abutting properties, and I can't remember what the radius is, but you'd certainly fall into it. So we would do they call it pre-blast or pre-rock removal survey. So if any damage did happen, you'd have a claim against it.
Does that include photographing the inside of properties?
Typically what they do is they do photograph, structural components and anything that might potentially suffer damage because of it. Rock removal hydraulically, like Adam was talking about, the likelihood of damage is very low. With blasting, it's a bit more unpredictable. But we don't propose to blast here.
Susan Jick again, Half Moon Hill. I have one question and two concerns. My question is, does anyone know if we actually need more daycare in Acton? My understanding is that we have reduced enrollment in our elementary schools, and I'm just curious if this is a need. My two comments or concerns, one is I live in West Acton and drive through that area at rush hour when school is opening and closing. It's already, to me, a big safety concern. It's a distraction for drivers. There's a lot of cyclists and kids and cars coming and going, and I'm a little horrified at the thought of adding yet another set of cars coming and going with small kids. So that's just a concern. And looking at the site plan, I just have to note that I think just about every single tree on that lot is going to have to be taken down to accommodate all the parking and the building. And that's just added to all of the other trees that have come down in the whole Kelley's Corner project, and it makes me want to cry. So just need to say that.
Thank you. I can answer the question that you have about childcare seats. I've been in touch with a few childcare center directors and board members, and not a single one of them have any concerns about an additional facility coming into this town. They have wait lists. We've heard from residents, my kids are in this daycare center, but the wait list was 9 months long. My kids are in this daycare center, but the wait list was 2 years long. So there is a big demand for childcare. There's a big need for childcare in this community. And, it'll draw people from other communities as well, not just Acton residents. And we did get some public feedback suggesting that it will be great for staff at the schools. We've got 4 schools next door. So we've got teachers who might be in need of childcare, as well as the folks who live nearby.
Bruce Turcona Jr., Main Street. Did I understand that the open space part of this is being allowed to be less than it normally would? And how did that come to be a decision that was made?
So because this is a protected use under the Dover Amendment, because it is a by right use, the town cannot impose unreasonable restrictions, and our zoning requirements for childcare centers and residential are pretty restrictive and would interfere with the operations of the center and its ability to be viable. And that's evidenced by the similar non-compliance with those zoning with the existing childcare centers in town.
I understand you went through some of that in terms of some of the, the ratios and things like that, but you're saying most of those don't have that same kind of thing? Is that what you're saying? That most of them don't have that same amount of open space that?
I did not ask staff to look at open space. I was mostly concerned with the floor area ratio.
Yeah.
But the open space requirement is 35%, and this project proposes 27%.
Yeah.
So it's, 8% less. I wanted to know, how many square feet is that? It's about 5,000 square feet. So it's significant. And, the previous comment about clear cutting almost all of the trees, that makes me want to cry as well. I mean, almost half of this site is going to be covered with impervious surface. We're removing nature's best stormwater management, the forest. But we also have heard from folks, the Dover Amendment and our limited authority to have conditions and requirements for this project aside, we've heard from a lot of people who, we hear all the time, we need more commercial taxpayers in this town, and we need more childcare in this town. So I think that there are trade-offs. The one thing that I am not willing to trade on is safety. A driveway that's too steep. And I'm hoping that Mass DOT will weigh in on that. We don't want cars sliding down the driveway in icy winter conditions into Mass Ave. And so they're making changes to make that better, and we can condition that.
All righty, so, but what you're saying is that the board has decided that this is a trade-off that they can make?
The board doesn't have any authority to say
saying
that it
there's
needs
no-
to be smaller, that we need to require,
Okay.
this amount of open space.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, could I just make a point on that? And it's actually not to do with open space, but I just did want to go on the record again. When we were working with the board and town manager on the sewer amendments, we did and are going to give subsidized care. And I just think it's quite a while ago and hasn't been brought up in any of our hearings. So we are hearing what the board is saying as far as trying to provide affordable childcare to at least a few. So I just wanted to go on record with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did remember to mention the contribution to the INI, which will increase our capacity, but I forgot that we do also have an arrangement for subsidized childcare seats. And there was one person online?
There are two people now online with their hand raised, and calling user 1.
Yes, hi, this is Tara from here, Mass. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I believe they can't destroy the house before the demo delay expires, but to the application, while you can't require the company to save the old building, according to the town attorney, you can deny the project if the select board believes the building is too large. By law, the onus is on the applicant to prove that a smaller building is impossible or economically infeasible. The members of the DRB have said the applicant has not provided pro forma proof that it would be economically infeasible with a smaller building. Deny the application, then he can prove to the judge that the larger building is warranted. Please use all your cards that the law provides you. The applicant has not met the intent of the law. Please do the work. It's important for a project of such size and consequence to consider a draft denial based on the building being too large. Please either vote to deny the project tonight or postpone the hearing to have time to consider a draft denial decision based on the fact that the proposed building is too large. It seems prudent to see a draft denial decision memo before voting on this project. The select board seems to want to save the old building. The best way to do that is to deny the project. At least continue the hearing and ask for a draft denial to consider, where the basis would be that the building is too large. That will motivate them to try harder to save the old house and mitigate the tree clearing and traffic concerns. Thank you very much.
Renee, you just have to unmute now.
Hello, Renee Sulk, 26 Taylor. I share many of the, you can hear me, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Great, hi. I share many of the concerns that were already brought up about the traffic, the safety, the historic nature, and particularly the fit of the building to the lot. And I won't repeat what everyone else has said, and I apologize if this has already been answered, but has Primrose considered other sites, or are there other options for them to put? And maybe this is like a very naive question, but someone was talking about the population decline. We just closed a school, or we are in the process of closing a school. I don't know if there's other options for them besides this particular one that they're looking at on that lot. Thank you.
Neil Davis. Neil Davis, you just have to unmute.
Yes, good evening. Just a quick comment about the traffic study. Wondering why Primrose used a generic template for a daycare center with student population of 66 instead of actual data for the student population that they're proposing. Just seems very misleading not to use the actual data for the trip generation for that site. And I would agree that the board should wait until Mass DOT does their full evaluation before voting on this.
And the last hand online, Ann Forbes, just have to unmute.
Thank you, Ann Forbes, 25 Martin Street. I came to this particular part of the hearing late, but I have read all the other documents. just want to say that I am alarmed at this late hour that the developer is showing such little understanding about the age of the building. Isn't the Macris inventory form a standard part of an application such as this? It clearly does not say that the building was built in the 1920s or whatever the developer just tried to claim. If that is not part of this consideration, is not part of the whole package on this property, I submit that you should delay until it is submitted and it can be. Certainly, it was the basis of the Historical Commission's findings and advice over the last year. So do you have that inventory form on 457 Mass Ave in your file?
And this is Alyssa. I have read the area form. It's definitely part of the Historical Commission's process, and we do have a letter from the Historical Commission in our packet for this project. Nate, do you know if if the area form was attached to that letter?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I
Okay.
can see.
We can see, Ann. And is there anybody at the table who wants to address the gentleman's question about the trip generation?
So I'll let Adam address that. I do want to say people love to hate applicants and throw around words like disingenuous or whatever, but when Mr. Taylor was asking those questions, he was asking to learn more about the story and the history that Mr. Charter was providing. It wasn't about when the building was born. He wasn't built. He wasn't claiming anything about when the building was built. I would just urge people, I mean, it's unfortunately all too common in today's public discourse to sort of throw around pejoratives and think the worst of people. I can tell you from working with Mr. Taylor, that's not who he is, and he was honestly just trying to dig in and get more information about, I think, a moving and interesting story that Mr. Charter was speaking to. But with that, I'll let Mr. Drake speak to the traffic issue.
Yeah, I can go over. So if you pull up the traffic impact study that we submitted, I can talk through it. You don't actually have to pull it up on there. So we use the ITE calculations for a 183 student daycare facility. I believe what the gentleman was referring to is our peak hour. So the amount of trips you see in a peak hour, I believe, are around 68, which I think is what he said. We get to that number because the pickup and drop off is staggered. So parents essentially will get a window. It's not like a traditional school where everyone shows up at a bell. It's going to be staggered over a couple hours. So it's not like a rapid influx. It's staggered drop off and pick off. So that's why you see the lower number and not the 183.
Thank you for that. Are there any other public comments before I entertain a motion to close the hearing? One more.
Call-in user 1, you just have to unmute. Call-in user 1, it looks like you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you.
Yeah, I'd just like to, this is Tara again, I'd like to remind people that the bylaw now prevents tree clearing before an application is approved, and I hope you do not vote to close the hearing. I hope that you give this a chance to see a denial letter. You have seen a draft approval letter, but please ask for a draft denial letter of a size and consequence of this parcel or property or of application seems large enough to warrant that. Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion? Go ahead.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
And abstentions. All right, that passes 4-1. And I guess before I ask for comment from board members, I just want to share a few different conditions that I think, in addition to what we've already got in there, that we asked planning staff to add at the hearing a couple weeks ago. But before I do that, I do want to speak to the comments about the building size that have been raised verbally tonight and also in emails, especially from our boards and committees, like the Design Review Board. I had a discussion with town council about the building size because that building coverage is one of the 8, I don't know what to call them, conditions, items, help me out here. Conditional requirements that we do have authority over. However, the building coverage in this case, well, in all case law that exists in the state, it does not ever go in favor of the municipality, the permitting authority. It's always in favor of the applicant for the child care center. So even though it's really difficult to accept that we might lose this precious historical home, that, we're going to lose the trees, that this 1.4 acre parcel is going to have a large building and a large parking lot on it, that there's no authority that we have to make any demands or requirements to change those things, especially given, like, I would love, I know we talked last hearing about the fact that it's a matter of timing, right? When Primrose is looking to enter the Acton market and you're looking at what properties are available for sale, you're not going out to look for a very challenging site that is, tight in terms of like the size of the parcel versus the size of the building that you need for the optimal operation, the steep topography, the depth to the bedrock, as well as, the existing traffic circulation and safety concerns. It would be great if you had looked at that site and said, this is not the right site. It's really inappropriate for what we want to put there, and waited a while, waited another year or two until we found a different site. It would be great. I would love that, but that's not the situation that we're in right now. And I understand that you have an agreement with the current property owner, a purchase and sale that's dependent on the outcome of this hearing. So you're not in a position to go back to them and say, you know what, forget it, we changed our mind. You have a legal agreement. You can't go and look at what's available right now, today, that might be more optimal for this project. So I just wanted to share that before I offer some conditions for the board members to consider. I think that it would be a good idea to have that snow removal off-site in the operational plan. I'm glad to hear that it's standard practice at the other Primrose sites. There was a note in the memo from planning staff that the slope of the driveway is still higher than, I know it's approvable, but it's still higher than what's in Mass DOT's development and something guidance. So planning did say that in their memo that we can, by lowering the site even more, we can meet that ideal guidance. So I'd like the board to consider that condition to get that slope of the driveway less steep and bring it to the Mass DOT standard. I think it's just 1%. I mean, it really should be 5% slope, but at least if we can get to the DOT standard, I think that that would be better than the design that exists right now on the plan. The Design Review Board did request for us to condition, as the landscaping plans are being developed, especially the landscaping along Mass Ave, not shield. Screen, thank you, David. Screen the retaining wall, that the applicants go back to them for their input. There's fantastic landscape architects on that board. And I do want to note that the applicant was not present at the original review of the Design Review Board, so it would be great if you met with them at least once. I added a condition for the operations to account, for shifts and drop-off and pickup time, but it sounds like that's already how Primrose operates to offset, so people aren't all dropping off and picking up at the same time. I think that's really critical because the level of service right now at Prospect and Mass Ave is already an F. I think it's 59 seconds delay, and this is gonna, post-development, it's gonna increase it by another 15 seconds. And I just have two more, but then you can go after. I will withdraw my request to, well, obviously, we closed the hearing. I will say that we should condition a return to the board for an amendment if any modifications are requested by Mass DOT. And then, David, to your point about the demolition of the house, I think we should condition no damage to the house during the site work instead of no work at all. Because I agree that that's not correct. So those are the conditions that I propose that we add in. And do you want to respond before I ask for comments from the board?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Point of order.
Yes.
Can he comment still, since we've closed the hearing?
No, I'm sorry. Forgot about that.
Quite all right.
I'm new at this. I'm not really.
I think you could ask him a specific question, but I think he can't opine on anything.
So do we have any opining that board members want to make? Fran?
I just wondered if you would also draft a denial letter as well, if, Madam Chair. Not you personally, but have a draft denial letter.
I think that the draft decision that we have in the packet left all of the approve or deny blank, like it left the vote up to, the language would be put in after the board voted. So I think that the decision that's in is an either or, rather than asking staff to draft something that we actually can't implement without considerable expense in the courts.
So, I'm like all of us, I think I'm sad about the house going. However, I believe we've done what we can do, right? The Historical Commission has done its demo delay, which is still in effect for another 5-6 months or whatever it is. And I just want to point out that we know that, fixing up these houses is, quite an expense, and it's suboptimal after that. We know that we know that firsthand because of the Asaph Parlin house, which is of similar vintage, and for which we spent well over $1 million in an extraordinary amount per square foot. I also want to say, a lot of people have said that it's inappropriate for the site, but frankly, I think it's extremely appropriate for this area, right? If we were talking about putting a daycare facility in the middle of a neighborhood, that would be inappropriate in my view. But in this case, it's in the area around it. It's next to a school campus that has 4 huge buildings on it. It's near a number of apartment buildings that are also reasonably large. It's not sitting in between, or in the middle of a purely residential neighborhood. I think it's very appropriate for this site. I do completely understand the concerns about traffic, and that's the nature of things. But I will say that this facility with 180 or so students is dwarfed by the school campus with 3,500 or so students. I see the need for daycare in the town is acute, right? I know people who have to, have their kids go to out-of-town daycare because there's no daycare in our town. I also, actually, I don't understand, I'm sorry, friend, I don't understand the draft denial thing. There is no such thing as a draft denial. If the board wanted to come up with findings that by which we were denying that, we could ask the planning department to produce such a denial. But we can't just make up things and say this is what we would vote on if we were denying the thing. There have to be findings that of failures there, right? And so, and I'll just remind the board, in addition to the Dover Amendment, this is a site plan special permit. It is not a use special permit, right? And so it's not, there's sometimes where we have the ability to, deny a use, and this is not one of those times. Thank you.
So I think your additional conditions seem very reasonable. And I do think that, we've heard tonight about some things that are drawbacks of this, that I still think are drawbacks of the site, just in terms of more traffic, more just that interaction between pedestrians and cars, eliminating more trees in an area where we've already been doing that. But I also think that that's balanced by what's a real need right now, which is for more available and affordable daycare. So, so again, thinking about your conditions, I think they're reasonable.
Yeah, I think my thoughts mirror what David and Pam have both stated. You just look at the other side of the school campus and, there's another big daycare center over there. And, I think it's probably an appropriate use, and there's been a real conscious effort on the part of the town to develop a more dense urban core centered around Kelley's Corner, and I think this kind of fits in with that. Yeah, it's not a great site. The site that's now the residential condos directly across the street that's nice and flat and wide open would have been a much better spot, frankly, but it's all built on. So I think your one comment about, trying to adjust the grade so that we don't have an issue with the cars getting out if there's too steep a grade, or do whatever other engineering can be done to assure that we don't have a situation with cars getting out of the parking lot and going out onto Mass Ave. And I'm sure that's going to be part of the determination from Mass DOT as well. So I think those are reasonable additional conditions that you've come up with. So I'm good with it, or as good as I can be.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify that when I said inappropriate for the site, I meant the 1.4 acre parcel and the size of the building. Like, it would be better if it was on a larger parcel. So definitely, I'm not thinking of how the building looks across the street from the Mount Calvary Church, right next door to the junior high, down the way from Stop and Shop and the Tavernier Place. Like, those buildings are all large. We're not tucking it into an exclusively residential neighborhood. It's just right on the edge. So that said, I was referring more to the comments that we've received about whether or not a building that size, a parking lot that size, really fits on to that size parcel, as well as the topographical challenges. I'm a little concerned that the applicants want to weigh in on these conditions, even though the hearing is closed. I saw a nod for having snow removal offsite in the operation plan. I saw a nod for meeting with the DRB as the landscape plans are being developed. It's already been expressed that they're okay returning to the board for any amendment. I think there was nodding for that. I think that the condition for no damage to the house during the site walk is reasonable. So you said I could ask a question, David? Is that accurate? Can I ask a question after the public hearing is closed, or do we need to reopen this? I know you're not town
depends on the
council.
question.
Okay, the question is whether or not the condition to require the slope of the driveway to meet the Mass DOT standard, as was presented in planning's memo, that could be done by lowering the site. So they've already got the 20-foot wide, whatever it's called, at the end of the driveway to help with traffic exiting in the winter conditions. But the slope is still more steep than the standard. So can I just ask, is that the condition that you want to comment on?
Could I ask a question in answer to your question, which I think is a point of order that might help move this along?
Sure.
So typically in this situation, whether I'm representing the board or the applicant, because the hearing's closed, a lot of this really comes down to the wording of the draft conditions. So rather than twisting ourselves into pretzels in this meeting, would it be appropriate for me to work with staff and, as appropriate or deemed needed by staff, town council, to get the conditions in a form that we could accept and that would meet the interests and the intent of the board?
I think that what we should do is have staff incorporate these conditions into the decision, just do an edit of the decision. And then we're not going to be able to vote on it tonight because it's not written, right?
Exactly.
We've closed the public hearing. We want to make some changes to the decision, and any comments that you have on that draft decision before our next meeting. It's not going to be a continued hearing, but definitely reach out to staff and share that with them, and we can deal with any additional edits that we would need to make at that time.
Understood.
Okay.
That was my suggestion. Thank you.
And this is just reminding me that there was one very important point that I wanted to bring up. I didn't see on the site plan, the most recent site plan in the packet, a no left turn sign at the end of the driveway. I only see the stop sign and the stop bar on that plan, and there's no language in the decision that that was something that we need to do per GCG's recommendation. So that should just be one more addition. Yes, David?
So that can just be a condition as well. So I have
Yeah.
six, if I'm counting correctly. I have a couple of questions. May I make another
Yeah, go
continued
ahead.
comment? The planning division can work with the peer reviewer to adjust the wording for the DOT standard. Do you know the driveway does not meet a slope standard, even though it's set back?
Yes, that is in the memo from planning that was written on May 13th and in our May 18th meeting packet. Yep.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, I think I can recite the conditions. I did want to make one other comment that I think the snow removal thing should have some threshold, like if more than one space is impeded or more than two spaces impeded, that they would need to remove the snow off-site.
So I think language to clarify is a good idea, but I wouldn't want any spaces to be impeded.
Okay.
Because the area for snow storage on the site plan is tiny. And we already have reduced the number of parking spaces and also made some of the parking spaces smaller, compact spaces.
So if any spaces are impeded? Yeah, okay.
Do you need the list of conditions read out loud again, or can we just, would you appreciate
I've got
that? You're fine? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should read them out loud because I think we want to say that we are directing the planning division to produce a new draft for us.
Okay.
to
I thought we
consider.
just did that, but David wants to read them out loud. Make sure we have it correct, accurate. Thank you.
So some language addressing the slope of the driveway, incorporating some standard, to screen the retaining wall with landscaping, to come back with an amendment to this site plan review should DOT require a change to the plan, that there can be no damage to the house if any site work is done before the demo delay, that snow removal be required in the future if any parking spaces are impeded, and that there be a no left turn sign at the end of the driveway.
And then regarding the landscape plan, we'd love you to meet with the design review board to get their feedback on that as it gets developed. All right? Thank you very much for all of your time. All right, our next agenda item is to approve a name for the new park at 53 River Street. Thanks so much. And we have our project manager who will lead us off with an introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Select Board members. So as you are aware, the town conducted a survey throughout the community soliciting feedback on potential names for 53 River Street. Quite some time ago, the 53 River Street Master Plan Committee had submitted a few options to the board, and the board had discussed them and felt that this would be a good approach. So the survey developed between Select Board Member David Martin, myself, and the town manager, included three options rather. Two that provided potential park names. The first name was Shoddy Mill Park. The second was Textile Mill Park, as well as a little bit of information on what those meant and what they were. And then a third option, and this was been kind of fun to read through what's been submitted, but it was a submit your own with a little bit of information. The survey was extremely successful. We had 364 responses, 128 votes for Shoddy Mill Park, which is about 35.2%, and 103 votes for Textile Mill Park, which is 28.3%. Instead of going through the full list of 50 some odd names, I try to capture the top 5 after that. And then the memo in your packet outlines a few, and I'll just run through them real quick. River Street Park was the highest write-in submission. Mill Park was the second. River Mill Park, a combination of the two, was the third highest. Mill River Park was fourth, and Fort Pond Park was fifth. So you see a lot of them kind of had similar themes, including river, including mill, and then street. So those are the results. Included in your packet as well is a sorted data set of all 364 submissions. I'm happy to talk through anything. I'm happy to provide additional information or answer any questions you have as well.
Thank you very much. That was a great survey response. I'm happy about that. Are any comments from board members? Fran?
I just have to say that I was so swayed by some of the other answers. I was so attached to my answer, and that could only be what it is. And now I completely feel differently. I loved the array of, the variety of the different suggestions. That's all I had to say.
Can you share with us, as the liaison to the Historical Commission, about their position?
Well, I
Because I know
didn't
they
ask
took a
them.
vote.
I just
Okay.
suggested everyone individually voted.
Okay,
I know
I
they've-
mean last year.
I don't know, yeah, I wouldn't want to speak for anyone, but can I just elaborate that they have been working on the historical, information that is at the park. So, yeah.
I'd love to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So as part of the permits that we received and approvals, there were originally 3 signs that were approved and required that would be placed throughout the park as paying tribute to the history of the park, and giving a little explanation as to the significance of the area to the River Street quarter and that whole South Acton section. And through discussions and review of the study provided by Gray and Pape, which is the historical consultant to the town, the 53 River Street Park Committee, or River Street Park Project Team, decided that 4 signs would be more appropriate to pay a little bit more homage to the area and the significance of the site. So when you go out, and hopefully the next month or so, you'll see the signs placed in 4 different areas. David and I walked the site with the clerk of the works the other day, and we think the sighting of each sign will give a good understanding of what each area really meant, not only to the site, but also to the park, or to the neighborhood as well. So those signs were approved by the Historical Commission, and we're pretty excited to have those out pretty soon. Thank you for mentioning those, Fran. They're a neat little feature to the park.
So a couple little things. As the deputy town manager mentioned, the 4 historic signs that were, finalized just recently, and they've now been ordered, I think. Those had extensive input from the Historical Commission, and they have been ordered. About the only sign that's not ordered is the entrance sign. So it would be good if we could make a decision on what the name is. Most things will be done except for the entrance sign. So the sooner the better that we could prove that. If we can approve a name tonight, that would be wonderful. I will say that I personally, both talking about the wording on the historical signs and other things about the park, met with the Historical Commission 4 times or 5 times during the course of this project, 2 times, I think, within the past year. I would say that the members of the Historical Commission would prefer the name as a general thing. I don't know that they took a vote, but just my understanding of what their input was at the time we were chatting about it, they would prefer Shoddy Mill Park. The 53 River Street Committee preferred, which included Bill Clower, by the way, preferred Textile Mill Park. And it's just up to, us to make a final decision. I think it makes sense, if I don't know how you intend to do the vote here, whether you're just going to take those top 2 and ask us to choose between the 2, whether you're going to take a motion for one of them. Whatever you just decide to do there. I think, the others, Deputy Town Manager can correct me if I'm wrong, the 3rd place had 11 votes, right, or something like that. I'm just from memory. So they pale in comparison to the other 2, which each had over 100 votes. So anyway.
Dean?
Yeah, just my own personal feeling, and depends on how you want to do the vote, but I would have always favored the idea of Shoddy Mill Park as being the appropriate name because, you know, amongst other, it's historically accurate, and I think it kind of, people driving by, it will attract their attention, and they'll want to learn more about it. So I think it's an interesting piece of our history. So I certainly think that's the most appropriate name.
Would you like to weigh in?
So one other thing about, on the sign, unless we choose a name which is really different, universally in my discussions previously from all the committees, everybody thought it was a good idea, or almost everybody, to have I'll call it a subtitle under whatever name we choose, that says Historic South Acton. So they proposed that the entrance signs say whatever we choose here tonight, and then in a smaller typeface, say Historic South Acton. So I add that. I don't know whether we want to incorporate that in our motion or whether that, whatever you want to do there.
Pam's shaking her head. So I was just anticipating taking a single motion. That's how I was going to do it. I love Shoddy Mill Park because it was operating, that site, it was operating as a shoddy mill for almost a century. And as Dean mentioned, it's going to make people stop and question why did they name it that because of the modern day interpretation of the word shoddy. I shouldn't say interpretation, it's just what it means. But the reason that it means degraded or not good quality is because the textile that was produced from the shoddy that was produced here was not great quality. So I will entertain a motion. Just wanted to share that my preference is for Shoddy Mill. And I guess I'm glad to see that the survey results support that. Let's be bold and fun.
Can I be a pill? Is it possible to put this up on the screen, just so folks can see? I think.
And I also wanted to say, I love the idea of adding historic South Acton.
Yeah.
And I do recall you mentioning that before, David.
I just think that some of the other names too are pretty cool. You know, Mill River Park. I think that's great. I mean, we have all the historical information on our placards. Fort Pond Park was kind of cool. I'm a shoddy person too, and I was surprised how many other ones I liked. So I just thought that was kind of fun.
Yes? David? Oh. Well, you haven't spoken yet, so Pam.
Well, I have to admit, I didn't start out as a Shoddy Mill fan. However, I do think it's important to look at the survey results. And looking at the survey results, I'm convinced.
Two little comments, and then I'll make a motion. Among other things, at this site, the old fabrics, coats and things like that were broken down to make the shoddy, mostly blankets. There was one point in construction where the site was covered with buttons. You could stand in one place and pick up 50 buttons. I have a little bowl of maybe 20 or 25 buttons in my bathroom now, just as a decoration. I just stood one there, I couldn't help not do it. I stood in one place and I picked up buttons. Those buttons are no longer visible on the surface, and they weren't visible halfway through construction, but I just thought I'd share that. And I also, I'm gonna make a motion, and then I'm probably gonna vote against it. I just want to explain. I was a member of the 53 River Street Committee, and I feel I need to represent that committee. That committee strongly preferred textile mill park for a number of reasons, that the shoddy mill was not the only mill on that site. And so they preferred that. Some people also dislike the word shoddy. But I will move that we name the park Shoddy Mill Park with a subtitle of Historic South Acton.
Second.
I am just about to ask for public comment before we vote. Do you want to offer some, Deborah? Okay.
Greg Jarbo, 5 Cherokee Road. I like the fact that you have picked Shoddy Mill. I would also like to compliment the Deputy Town Manager, because getting that number of responses, the Finance Committee debated sometime last year we were submitted a poll. I think it had 108 responses, and we said, is that really enough? So we had, amongst ourselves, determined that close to 400 was the right number. So, damn, you nailed it.
Deborah Symes, Concord Road. I am going to indulge in an exercise in futility here, I think. However, I sent this to you, but I want the world to hear. I want you to consider something other than Shoddy Mill or Textile Mill Park, and the thing I'm submitting is the Mill Green. Here's why. Shoddy Mill Park. History nerds may know or understand the shoddy referent, but I think very few others will, and will assume the more common meaning of characterized by poor quality, cheaply imitative, or shabby, as you noted. There might be an explainer kiosk or plaque that would be great to explain what the shoddy business is about, but those who don't already understand the reference, or who haven't visited and read such a marker will no doubt wonder, why would they diss their park in its very name? Textile Mill Park, though pointing to the same historic use as Shoddy Mill Park, it is kind of generic. I mean, there are a mess of old textile mills in Massachusetts. Does this name distinguish Acton's in any way? I'm thinking not really. The Mill Green. Yes, mill is also generic, but it anchors the name to its historical use and bridges history and the now and future of the site. A village green has a long history. Green, originally in the UK as a commons where livestock could graze if need be, but in modernity has come to mean a park-like open space in a community. Perhaps more poetically, town or village greens have been used for May Day pole celebrations, sites of cricket matches, a locale for soapbox orations, and more. At heart, greens are small oases held in common for the relaxation, recreation, and/or pleasure of community members. Now, green space is widely recognized for its importance to the physical and mental health, well-being, and social fabric of communities, and in future, these services will continue to be important to our denizens. Also, the Mill Green, to my ears, is just more sonorously pleasing, though that's fairly subjective. So the Mill Green, and I will say that on social media, it had a fair number of endorsements, more than the third place item, I'm just saying.
Thank you. Any other public comments in the room or online? Okay. Thank you. That was very eloquent. I think that it probably is important to have as part of the record, because we did discuss this a long time ago, a year and a half ago, maybe. So just to bring people up to date. I support Shoddy Mill Park because it, as we've already mentioned, is historically accurate. The Shoddy Mill was really key to the development of that area in South Acton. A lot of the housing that was built there housed mill workers. And I mentioned when we discussed this a year and a half ago, that I like the name. I don't think we should shy away from it just because it has that negative connotation in present day times. It reminds me of Mount Misery over in Lincoln, Gibbet Hill in Groton. You know, there's some towns with unfortunate names like Hell and Boring. So I think that as an educator, the name Shoddy Mill is going to invite wonder and curiosity, and we do have the explainer signs, not just one, but 4. So if there are not any more comments from the board, I will take a vote. We good? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed? And any abstentions? You surprised me, David. So that's unanimous.
So if, you can actually go see the outline of the park now, and there'll be a ribbon cutting sometime this summer. The park is going to be a real gem. There are 4 places where you can walk right up to the brook. They've turned an old part of the dam itself into an overlook, so you can look upstream. It'll be very nice. We're just about to getting ready to do some of the tree planting there, so it'll be a very nice space.
Thank you. I agree. The overlook looks like it's a, national park. We should move on to the next item, which is number 6, approve Second Amendment to Memorandum of Agreement with Powdermill Residential Holdings, LLC. John.
Thank you. This matter is on the agenda, and I guess it'll serve more as an update than actually an request for approval, because the actual final form of the amendment has not been finalized yet. But just to give the board and interested public an update on this, we had a memorandum of agreement with the development company, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago when this project was first started up. And then when it actually sort of went into motion a couple years ago, the board at that time had an amendment to the MOA just to update a few of the items and to require a larger contribution towards some of the off-site sewer improvements. This second amendment to that agreement is going to sort of just wrap up a few of the details that we've been working on during the construction project, a minor revision to the how far the sewer extension that they built for us is going to go. It was supposed to go, there was supposed to be a stub installed that starts right at the bottom of the hill of Sudbury Road, but there's a lot going on right there. And so they've asked to have the stub start over here, and that if we ever decide to go up that hill, we fight that battle and deal with all the intersecting utilities at that time. And there was also a requirement that they build a sidewalk, and we have a grant to build a sidewalk, and we are going to build it instead. And so we wanted to memorialize that. There was also they were supposed to replace the traffic signals, but we would rather have them replace them with a more modern, do you remember what it's called? It's the system that we're installing now to be uniform with all our other ones, where it's a camera, not a camera to see the people, but to see how many cars are there, to know when to change the light. So a few things like that we've had agreement on, but it needs to be memorialized in an agreement. So I don't expect it to be that controversial, but I want it to be right in final before we bring it to the board. So hopefully next meeting. If there's any questions in the meantime, happy to address that.
I have one question about the sidewalk construction that is no longer required to be paid for by them. Is there additional monies coming into our sidewalk fund as a result?
It's really, they were going to build an asphalt sidewalk, which is all they're required to do. And then 6 weeks later, we're going to rip it up and put in a concrete sidewalk. So whether or not we're going to get any money from them, I think it's just a better use of everyone's time and resources.
David?
Yeah, I think they would be required only to put the sidewalk in front of their property, except for this agreement. right? What was I going to say? So when we get this next time, can we have a map outlining these things in the packet? Right, I read the whole agreement and, the sewer stops at manhole 9. Okay, I don't know where that is. I went back to the old plans and I'm looking for manhole 9 and the old plans are, at least the form that I have them in, I can't zoom them enough to read them. The print is so small, and if I zoom them, it just gets fuzzy. So I would like to know where the extent of the sewer is. I want to be assured that every place on High Street, on Powdermill Road, between High Street and this development is sewered, right? Because they talk about 3 different sewer types. They have a gravity sewer, a high-pressure sewer, and a low-pressure sewer. You can't connect to the high-pressure sewer. And so I just want to make sure that either the gravity or the low-pressure sewer is on all other extents of High Street. I want to completely understand whether they're covering West Side Drive. That was really confusing to me. West Side Drive was covered in the original agreement. I think it's, from what you just said, I think it's not, but I think what was in the agreement that was in the packet, it sounded like it still was. And then I have some questions, maybe I'll connect with you offline about the monies, just to completely understand them. So.
I think that makes sense. I just want to address the west, that's the subdivision that's off of Sudbury Road, right? Yeah, so that, in the amendment that this board, or I guess the previous version of the board signed last year, we agreed, or the board agreed to a contribution of somewhere in the range of $500,000, I believe, in lieu of extending further up Sudbury Road and West Side Drive. So that was out as that amendment codified, but I can connect with you before next week, and I can make sure that we show some type of graphic to help aid with the many amendments to this plan.
Thank you.
So John, I just want to add one request. David said the sidewalk construction, which would have been funded by them, was only going to happen because we had this agreement? No, okay, that's wrong. Because I was going to say, if they were required to build a sidewalk that they're no longer going to build, it would be nice to make an attempt to get a financial contribution that we can put towards some of the sewer upgrades.
Yeah, I should have been more clear with what I meant by that. It wasn't, the sidewalk that I was referring to isn't a sidewalk there that they were required to build from our MOA. It was a sidewalk that was included in their site plan in front of their property. And right where their pump station is, right before you get to the medical marijuana facility, there's currently no sidewalk. They were going to put a asphalt berm sidewalk, as required, and that wouldn't match with the rest of the streetscape improvements that we're putting in that corridor. So we said we'd rather not have you do that because it's going to cost us more to tear it up.
But as part of the permit, these applicants are either asked to build a sidewalk or to contribute to the sidewalk fund. So if it's not part of the MOA, is there any way to incorporate it? And you don't have to answer me right now, but I think that would be a worthwhile, it doesn't hurt to ask, effort. And are there any public comments on this item? You don't look that interested. All right. We're going to move on to item 7, which is an update on the Kelley's Corner infrastructure project.
Okay, thank you. So this is a project that when I was in this room interviewing to be a town manager, there was questions about what are you going to do? What are you going to help us do about Kelley's Corner? And it's something that had been worked on for a long time. In 2019, I think it was finally approved by town meeting to move forward with the project, which was very exciting. I think it was a pretty strong vote at that time. And we finished the design. The state actually covered the tab, even though we had town meeting pay for design funds. We were actually able to return that money because the state was so excited that we got support for the project. We handed over the plans, and then we had to wait 3 years for the whole thing to get funded and all that work. So around the end of 2022, the project actually started, which was only 3.5 years ago. Is that right? Where are we? It feels like 10 years ago for people that have to go through the intersection every day, but it was just about 3.5. It wasn't that long ago. And we have the end in sight of this project. There's been a few setbacks along the way. The utility line relocations, utility pole relocations took about 18 months longer than they were supposed to, so that kind of messed a lot of things up. And there were several other little things that happened in small construction projects that happened in this very big construction project, which compounded and created delays. But here we are. I think the street islands are in. The sidewalks, I think, are completed. The driveway aprons, I would say they're pretty far along with that. They ordered trees last Friday, and they need to plant them in June. So that June started today. They will be doing a lot of planting this month, and then they can't plant really once it gets to be too hot. So they'll have to stop and then come back in the fall and do the rest. And so that's one piece where I know that they're going to be working here in the fall, when I think many people didn't expect them to be. But the good news is that they'll be planting plants and doing things that shouldn't have too much of an impact on people's use of the intersection and the roadways. Another component of the project, which was really exciting, is the streetlights, the pedestrian scale streetlights. There was an issue with the installation of those, so there's been a delay with those. Those were supposed to be in already. They were supposed to be in March. And so it hasn't been resolved how they're going to figure that out. But once they figure it out, people are really going to like them. If you remember, they're along the street. There's probably 90 of them, and there'll be about 40 of them that have flagpoles on one side for a flag or something, a flag of some sort. And then on the other side, see, it is exciting. And then on the other side, there's a banner, so you can have a flag facing the sidewalk and then a banner facing the street. So, so that's coming. It hasn't been installed yet, and I don't know when it will be, but, so that's another piece that's been delayed. And this is, again, a state project. We do the best we can to work with them and their contractor to try to move things along, but we don't have the ability to control everything. They still have to put another finish coat of pavement on the whole project once all the details are done. They'll be able to do that, I think, before finishing the plantings this fall. So I would expect the finished coat of pavement to be in at some point this summer. And at that point, they'll do the final striping of the street. And I think a lot of the signage is already in already. So it's a lot of the grass. A lot of the grass has been planted. So it's coming along. Are there any questions?
So thank you for that. You answered almost all my questions. And the only one I have remaining is, without the line striping, how efficiently the traffic moves through the intersection is inconsistent. Depends on, I think, whether people are used to the intersection or not. But one of the things that residents have expressed concerns about is how the traffic light timing works. I think some of that has gotten better, but it's not all the features of the traffic light are turned on, actually. I assume that happens right after the striping goes in its final form. Is that correct?
They should be fully functioning right now. Whether they're fully maximized, I suspect that they're not. So I think once there's stop line, I don't even know that there are stop lines out there, because there's going to be, at the major intersection, there'll be a stop line for where the cars are supposed to stop. There'll be a bike zone where bikes are supposed to stop. And so there'll be a lot of new, not decorations, but visual cues, thank you, that will change the way the whole thing looks. So I think in terms of the camera and all the things that, I don't know if they're going to finalize all that until all that is in. So I think what you mentioned is probably correct, that there's still some additional tweaking that they'll do to timing once all the visual cues and signage and everything else is in place.
So sometimes the traffic lights run a little long now. So I assume that the full extent of the car detection is not enabled. But the most egregious thing, not egregious, most bothersome thing to residents is people headed northbound on Main Street wanting to turn left onto Mass Ave, specifically in the morning, parents wanting to drop off kids at one of the schools. That green arrow doesn't happen because I think the car detection for someone stopping and wanting to turn left there is not on. So I just don't want to get done with the project and have that not, the traffic lights include the arrow. The arrow is never green, right? And so, and I assume that's because the outline of where the cars would stop and where the traffic light would detect the stop cars is not definitive, or they didn't want to do it until they finished striping everything, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I just want to make sure that that is not missed. Or maybe DPW pays attention to that before the final, punch list or whatever is done at the end of the project is complete, to make sure the traffic lights are working as intended.
So to that, I think some of the design elements of the new intersection are going to operate in the best interest of safety, which don't always align with the best interests of people trying to get through the intersection. And I think that may be an example of it. I don't know that they want to prioritize a left turn there. I think they want to prioritize getting people through. So I can look back at the design plans, and regardless of the design plans, once it's finished, I think we can make adjustments that make sense for us. But some of the things like that, I think are intentional, even though they feel like they shouldn't be.
So that, may I make one more comment?
Yeah.
So that's the nice thing about these traffic lights, so they can detect, for example, if cars have been waiting to turn left 2 traffic cycles, light cycles, okay, we're going to let some of them through, right? And anyway, I think they're not, I believe that they're not in their final form currently. And I just want to make sure that the town has its interest in place, either, Corey reviewing them or whatever makes sense, but before we agree with the state that the project's done.
So it's not uncommon to hear complaints about the road islands, the islands in the road, and concerns that people are going to be hitting them. I know when I was driving through one community that had them, they had kind of reflective signs in front of them, which, made it real clear there was something there. And I was just curious whether we plan on having anything like that, to help with safety for those road islands.
Yeah, thank you. I think the traffic islands that are in many places as you enter the corridor are incomplete. They're basically just curbing that are in the middle of the road. They're going to be filled in with some more hard scape, concrete. There's supposed to be a concrete apron on the inside of it. And there's going to be plantings, and I do believe there'll be some type of sign, small reflective sign thing that you would see. But it won't be in until they finish. So right now they have barrels out. And I think when they put them in, I think it was the end of, it was right early in the spring they put them in, and there was a lot of surprise. I think people have started to get used to them at this point.
The barrels are fun. I'm going to go one step beyond what David commented on, wanting to make sure that we have the traffic light functioning as it's meant to and it doesn't get missed when the project is complete. Acknowledging that traffic engineers and public safety staff may have a different view of this. My concern is with that left turn light not ever being green, that what you have to do is you have to go in front of the oncoming one lane of southbound traffic on 27. So, or the alternative is to cut through the Stop and Shop parking lot, which is also a safety issue because people are walking to and from their cars if they're shopping at the grocery store, or kids and parents are walking through there as a shortcut to get to the school. So I think that having that green arrow on, I think it should have been turned on in the fall when the traffic lights were changed over. And the other delay, or not working as it's intended to at the end, is the light at Carroll Spinney Way and Mass Ave. I think David mentioned before, sometimes when we're leaving town hall late at night, like 10 o'clock, there's no traffic, and yet you're still sitting there for what seems like 2 whole minutes. That's less of a safety and more of it's annoying. But I think if we can, I know that the stop bar at Charter Road was painted too far towards Mass Ave, and we got them to move it back because otherwise the buses didn't have enough turning radius. If we can convince them to turn on that green light so that people are not darting out to turn, because otherwise if you're waiting for the southbound traffic to clear, it might not clear until you get a red light, and then you're sitting there through at least one cycle. Oh my goodness, sure.
Sorry. I was also wondering, maybe, as a follow-on to this, who controls the settings on the traffic lights after the project is complete? I know right now, for example, for the traffic light that is at School and Main Street, if its timing is wrong or the left turn cars are not being detected or whatever, our DPW either adjusts it or we have a contractor that adjusts it. Is that going to be the same for Kelley's Corner, all, the several traffic lights that are there, or is the state going to control those?
It's going to be a collaborative effort. They own some of the infrastructure, and we're going to have to, right now, if Corey figures out something that's wrong with it, he can't go in and fix it. He has to tell them to do it, and they will, and they do. So I think I can ask about the green-yellow question that you had up. I thought we already talked to them about it, and they said no, but we can ask again. And then we'll keep working it. We'll keep working it.
Yeah, I think that the reason may be no is that where the traffic detection not working. But anyway, thank you.
Do you have anything else on this?
No, just thank you for your patience, and
Thank you for the update.
it's there's a new nice wrought iron looking railing that they just installed in front of the plaza across from the Hosmer House. That looks really nice, and we'll start to see elements here and there. We have a handful of benches that were created from some of the trees that were taken down over near the old high school, and those are going to be installed by Acton DPW after the project is completed. And we're going to put them in a few key locations, including one of them near the junior high driveway on the opposite side of the street of where we were talking about earlier tonight, and a few other places. So as it starts to look greener, I think people are going to really love it.
Thank you. I do agree about the railing and the walkway at the Not Your Average Joe's Plaza. That looks really good. And just one last comment on this whole topic. Oh, but you want to go ahead? I was just going to say, it's not been 10 years. Not even 5, but we'll get there. Go ahead.
Quick question, John. As I drive by the Rhode Islands, I love saying that now that I've heard it. I'm noticing that the interior is basically rocks and fill. I know there's going to be this concrete apron, but somewhere in there has to be decent soil. So is all that stuff going to be taken out and actual soil put in there? Say yes.
Yeah, so if they've been doing a lot of this work in the last 3 weeks. They're excavating out the gravel, because they couldn't just leave big holes there until they put the loam in, so they've been excavating out gravel, filling it with loam. And where the trees are going, they're actually digging deeper, doing a little tree trench. They're not gonna do that in the street islands. They'll just put in the good stuff and then put the plants in afterwards.
They're going to have to take out some rocks because there are a lot of rocks in a couple of those.
Yeah, no, they have.
Okay.
They will.
I worry about it every time I drive by.
And there are comments online?
Renee, online, you just have to unmute.
Hello, Renee Taylor Road. Speaking of islands, I speak for many when I'm asking this question about the design of a couple of them and whether there might be any way to adjust a couple of them. The one, when you're on 111, the one in front of Northern Bank, I'm not sure, but it appears that when you're driving towards the high school, like, what is that, west, can you easily make a left turn around that island? I'm looking, and every time I drive by 16 times a day, I'm like, I see that they're doing the driveway, and I just want to make sure that, like, can you actually make a left turn easily, and you're not fighting Starbucks traffic, because that is also difficult to get into the Starbucks one. That's my first question. And then my second one, and I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but the island that's in between Roche and CVS, I understand it's being put there for safety issues, but what is the reason that you can't allow left turns out of Roche Brothers to get right back onto Route 2? I mean, you have the other two driveways right there with the Victor School and the lot right next door, and those don't have restrictions. You can go left and right. So I'm wondering what makes that part between CVS and Roche Brothers, that second entrance, what makes it special that you have to restrict it there? Because folks are just going to ultimately find a way to make a U-turn at the light and go back that way, or they're going to be cutting through the whole parking lot across all the pedestrian walk areas there to go out to the controlled signal. I understand that, and come back down to get back on Route 2. So, I don't know.
I don't know Renee, this is Alyssa. I don't know the answer to the first question, but I will tell you that the exit from the Roche Brothers Plaza was always no left turn. So they had the two angled drives, one entrance, one exit, and until they dug that up and removed the barrier to the vehicles, it was no left turn onto Mass Ave. So you have to exit the Roche Brothers Plaza onto Carroll Spinney Way and then go and take a left on that road to Mass Ave. So that has not changed. It's just been that it's been dug up and people have been able to unsafely turn left there because there was no barrier, and now that's changed back. But I'll let the staff answer the question about the first island that you mentioned.
Can I ask a quick follow-up? But
Sure.
why? But how is it unsafe to make a left turn there when you can make a left turn from anywhere else on that street? What is it about that particular, just because it's always been there, does it always have to be there? What's the safety concern?
So when this project was designed, they looked at a lot of things that we could improve for both pedestrians and for vehicle traffic, and they looked at accident history, and I don't remember the particulars about this very intersection, but all of these, where they're closing driveways that used to exist and where they're restricting turns that used to be allowed, it's to create less opportunities for unsafe conditions, unsafe, and also that cause congestion. So I think requiring people to use the standard exit and come around instead of trying to cross a pretty busy road, which people come off of the highway and haven't slowed down maybe yet, is one of the reasons that where the plan discourages taking a left out of there. And I was having trouble following the location of your first question, but we have the plans and can bring them up if you bring us back to where you were referring to.
Sure. So further down Spinney Lane, after you go past the CVS and you want to make a left turn to Northern Bank across from Starbucks, it seems it's a little tight, and maybe it's just hard to see when you're driving by, but it seems like the island, you have to like get really close to it to make a left turn to be able to make it into the driveway, to make a left turn into the Northern Bank parking lot.
Yeah, I think that is something that I've noticed myself, is that and it's going to get even tighter when there's bike lanes on both sides of the street. So I think this is truly a traffic calming project, and traffic calming causes people to drive slower and take turns slower and with more caution than maybe they want to. And I think it's different from before, but this is really designed in a way that forces people to take a slow left turn with a lot of caution, I guess. And if it was designed differently, I mean, if it was installed differently than it's shown on the plans, I think we can figure out what went wrong, but I haven't heard that to be the case.
I don't know, once it's paved, we'll have to go try driving it. It just seems like you're going to curb it every time you try to make a left turn, no matter how slow you go. You might hit that island. But I don't know, we'll see, I guess. And is there anything for the Starbucks, like you can't go in when someone's pulling out? And I know they're working on that area right now. I don't think there were plans to expand it, but I don't know if that was even part of the plan, because they took away that other entrance exit in the Starbucks parking lot. So I don't know if there's, if it's going to be easier or more difficult to navigate that parking lot with those entrances.
Yeah, I think it's going to look a lot nicer, and it's going to require more patience. And I think a lot of people miss having that other driveway there. I understand that. But I think this was a comprehensive design to change the way this whole area operates, focused on being more pedestrian-centric than car-centric. And I think there's some trade-offs when you do a big project like this, and some of the vehicle use patterns are going to be less ideal than they used to be. And I think hopefully we can work our way through it.
I hope. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the update. Thank you, everybody, for weighing in and for your questions. Our item number 8 is to approve a letter of support for a grant for the Great Road Corridor Study.
The Community Compact Program is accepting grants. I think they're due Friday or very soon, and we're asking the board to authorize the chair to send in a letter of support for the grant application that we're preparing to do a planning study to take a look at the future of Great Road and how we want it to serve our community and what we want to see there.
Thank you. I can say that I'm excited about this study that we're hoping to pursue to get a lot of community engagement around what the future of Great Road is going to look like. And I'm assuming this is in conjunction with our complete streets improvements that are going to happen along that corridor as well. Any comments or questions from board members? All right, I will ask for public comment. Come on up.
We don't want to slow you down, but this is the kind of thing that the Finance Committee has discussed and supports. And we've written letters on behalf of the school committee, who's been leading a charge to get the state to take a look at, let's say, Chapter 70 formulas. But this is the kind of thing that we'd be delighted to support. But don't wait for us. Our next meeting is going to be after your deadline. But I'm glad you're doing this, speaking as an individual.
Thank you. Anybody online? All right, I will accept a motion. David?
I move to approve the letter of support for the Great Road Corridor Study as presented in the packet.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed and any abstentions? All right, that's approved unanimously. And our last new special business item is an Acton leadership group discussion. And I just wanted to, I'll let John expand on this, but let the board know that the Finance Committee has requested that we begin our ALG meetings this summer rather than waiting until the fall, so we can get started with a recap and also ramping up to the FY 28, thank you, budgeting process. Just to engage in a little bit of getting to know you, because we will have new members on the ALG. And John, did you want to add anything to that?
No, just that we're excited to get started.
Any
I was just
questions?
going to say, that seems like a bum deal, but okay. Starting in the summer.
Thank you for sharing that. We're not gonna meet every week. Or even every other week, but definitely, I think our date is in July, if I remember correctly. Obviously, what we have right now are the projections, right? So we're not going to be able to really get into the meat of things until the district and the town finance departments can pull together budget for next fiscal year, but I think it will be good to do a review and a recap and also just get used to working with one another and voicing some of the challenges that everybody sees coming up. All right, any other comments or questions on that? Okay, we will move to the consent agenda. Item number 10 is to approve the meeting minutes from May 11th, 2026. Item 11, approve a one-day malt and wine license for Boston Area Gleaners at 91 Martin Street on June 20th, 2026. I will mention to all of the people listening that that is for the June Food Day, which is a phenomenal event with hay rides and music and really good food by a caterer from Pine Street Inn, I think. I can't remember their name. Brianna Mason at Nara Park, Wing Number 2, 25 Ledge Rock Way on June 27th, 2026. Sparks Hockey at Nara Park, 25 Ledge Rock Way on September 10th, 2026. Appoint Maneesh Dwivedi as a full member of the Historic District Commission with a term to end on June 30th, 2028. And 13, accept donation from Miriam Lezak and David Martin for $300 towards the annual Juneteenth event.
I'd like to hold that.
All right. I'll accept a motion for items 10 through 12.
I move to approve consent items 10 through 12 inclusive.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that passes unanimously. And to your hold, David.
I just want to abstain from this item.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve item 13.
So moved.
Second.
All right. And all in favor of item 13, say aye.
Aye. And thank you, Miriam Rezac and David Martin.
Any opposed? And our abstention?
I abstain.
Okay, we'll have one more motion, please.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned.